Welcome to my channel. Today, we're exploring Stellar Defiance, a sci-fi journey where humanity stands strong and defies the odds across the galaxy. Dive into epic starship battles, powerful tech, and the resilience that makes us unstoppable in a universe full of challenges. If you're ready for a thrill-packed adventure in deep space, hit subscribe, and let's get started. The alien civilizations that stretched across the vast reaches of the cosmos had seen countless species rise, fall, and evolve over millennia. Their planets, ancient and weathered, held secrets of civilizations long gone, civilizations that had once stood proud in their own corners of the universe. These species had, for the most part, evolved with their own guiding principles, their own understanding of life, survival, and the nature of the universe. Yet, for all their ancient wisdom, there was one trait that they could not fully comprehend, one aspect of life that eluded them, the willingness of humans to sacrifice for those they did not know, to place the welfare of others above their own without expectation of reward or recognition. It was a behavior that fascinated alien cultures, both in its complexity and its seeming contradiction to what they believed was the core of survival. For most of the galaxy's more advanced species, the survival instinct was deeply embedded in their psyche. Their history had been marked by the struggle for dominance, for resources, for territory. They were a people driven by a fundamental need to ensure the survival of their species, often at the expense of others. In some cultures, this was a matter of strict hierarchy. Only those at the top of the social order were worthy of protection, while others were expendable. In others, the notion of sacrifice was limited to one's family, clan, or race, and even then, only in extreme circumstances. To give one's life for a stranger, a being outside one's immediate circle, was almost inconceivable to them. There were rare exceptions, of course, an occasional warrior or philosopher who might speak of the noble act of sacrifice, but these were considered anomalies, not behaviors to be modeled. Then came humanity, with its bewildering concept of altruism. The people of Earth, despite their many flaws and imperfections, exhibited a striking and incomprehensible willingness to lay down their lives for others, to help those they had never met, to give of themselves without thought for what they might gain in return. From the smallest acts of kindness, helping a stranger carry groceries, volunteering to help a person in need, to the grandest, most profound sacrifices, soldiers laying down their lives for the protection of their fellow humans, doctors dedicating their lives to curing diseases for no personal gain, and, at times, entire communities coming together to help one another in times of disaster. Humans displayed an unrelenting willingness to care for others. To alien civilizations, this trait of humanity was puzzling. The idea that a species, which had so much to learn and so many challenges to face in their own survival, could offer up such sacrifices was almost beyond comprehension. For one species in particular, the Xerian, a race of hyper-intelligent, highly logical beings, the concept of selfless sacrifice was a profound mystery. The Xerians, who had achieved technological marvels that allowed them to manipulate the fabric of space-time, had long abandoned any pretense of communal altruism. Their societies were ruled by efficiency, logic, and calculation. They had long understood that survival required pragmatism, and pragmatism did not allow for the waste of resources, especially not in the form of self-sacrifice. The Xerians first encountered humanity on the fringes of the galaxy, where a human exploration ship was making its way through a previously unexplored region of space. The human crew had ventured far from home, and in their travels, they encountered a Xerian vessel. It was a momentous occasion, the first meeting between these two vastly different species. The Xerians, ever the observers, watched with interest as the humans responded to the encounter, their instinct for cooperation and understanding evident in their behavior. The humans did not view the Xerians as a threat. Instead, they offered their knowledge, extending a hand in friendship, eager to learn and share. The Xerians, though initially wary of the humans, were struck by the strange behavior of the crew. During the interaction, the humans exhibited behaviors that were not rooted in personal gain, nor driven by any apparent logic. They helped Xerians in distress, shared their food and technology, and even risked their own lives in the process of aiding their alien counterparts. The humans had not asked for anything in return, nor had they sought any advantage. They had simply acted out of a deep-seated sense of compassion and the belief that helping others was its own reward. This, to the Xerians, was incomprehensible. They could understand the concept of helping others if there was a direct benefit to be gained, a trade, an alliance, or a shared resource. But selfless sacrifice, particularly for strangers with no apparent benefit, was alien to them. The Xerians, though intellectually advanced, lacked the emotional depth to understand this instinct. They were a species that had evolved under the constant pressure of survival and efficiency. In their world, it was understood that survival came at the expense of others. There was no place for such seemingly irrational acts of kindness or selflessness. But humanity's readiness to sacrifice, to give without expectation, left the Xerians utterly perplexed. The more the Xerians studied humanity, the more they began to uncover the layers of this behavior. The concept of empathy was something that intrigued them. The human ability to understand the feelings of others, to place themselves in the shoes of a person they had never met, was a quality they had long since abandoned. The Xerians were highly intellectual beings, but their emotional faculties were dulled by eons of genetic evolution toward efficiency. In their world, emotions were considered inefficient distractions, something to be suppressed in favor of pure reason. To the Xerians, the human capacity for empathy seemed both illogical and profoundly beautiful. As the Xerians continued to observe Earth and its people, they came to understand that this willingness to sacrifice was not just an isolated phenomenon, but a deeply ingrained part of human nature. It was embedded in their social structures, in their religions, and their very concept of morality. The human capacity for self-sacrifice was not restricted to any one group or culture, it spanned continents, ideologies, and religions. Across the globe, people had been willing to put themselves at risk for the greater good, whether in the form of soldiers giving their lives for their countries, doctors and scientists dedicating their lives to curing diseases, or ordinary citizens rushing into burning buildings to save strangers. It was a pattern that persisted throughout history, from the earliest records of human civilization to the present day. The more the Xerians learned about humans, the more they realized that this behavior was not an anomaly, but a defining characteristic of the species. Earth had evolved in a way that emphasized cooperation over competition, empathy over calculation, and sacrifice over self-preservation. Humans, despite their many flaws, had developed a society where the welfare of others was often valued more highly than personal gain. The Xerians, in their cold logic, could not understand how such a trait could have evolved, but they began to appreciate it nonetheless. The Xerians' fascination with human sacrifice did not stop there. Over time, they began to ask themselves difficult questions about their own species. What had they lost by abandoning empathy? What had their cold, efficient way of life cost them? As they observed humans giving of themselves freely, without expectation of a return, the Xerians began to realize that there was something profoundly enriching about the human way of life, something they had never experienced. The selflessness of humans, their willingness to place the needs of others above their own, had created a sense of community, of shared purpose, that the Xerians could not replicate in their own society. Despite their technological advancements and intellectual superiority, the Xerians began to feel a profound sense of emptiness in their lives. For the first time in their long history, the Xerians began to question the very foundation of their civilization. They had long believed that efficiency and logic were the highest ideals, but watching humanity sacrifice for strangers made them realize that there was more to existence than mere survival. There was a richness to life that came from the connections between individuals, the bonds forged in selflessness and shared struggle. The Xerians, having long since discarded the notion of empathy as inefficient, began to explore the possibility of reintroducing these emotions into their society. The Xerians were not the only species to observe humanity's acts of sacrifice. Across the galaxy, other alien races were equally intrigued by the behavior of this strange, young species. Some were more advanced than humans, others less so, but all of them recognized the profound impact that humanity's willingness to give, to sacrifice, had on the galaxy. The act of sacrifice for a stranger became something of a touchstone, a cultural marker that set humans apart from the other species in the universe. It was an ideal that others began to aspire to, a quality that they sought to cultivate in their own societies. Over time, this fascination with human sacrifice spread. Alien species began to incorporate the idea of altruism into their own cultures. The Xerians, inspired by the human selflessness, began to experiment with emotional understanding, seeking to reconnect with the part of themselves that had been suppressed for so long. They established programs to foster empathy and to encourage acts of kindness, though they found the process difficult and slow. Despite their technological mastery, the Xerians realized that they had a long way to go in learning the true depth of what it meant to be selfless. Meanwhile, other species began to seek out humans for guidance, hoping to understand the secret behind their ability to sacrifice for strangers. Human diplomats, scientists, and philosophers were invited to speak with alien leaders, to share their knowledge and insights about the human experience. As the universe expanded, the idea of sacrifice for others, a quality that had once seemed so alien to many species, began to take root, spreading like a seed across the stars. For humanity, the recognition of their willingness to sacrifice was not one that they sought or expected. It was not a trait that was driven by pride or desire for approval, but rather a natural outgrowth of their understanding of the world and each other. Humans did not sacrifice for recognition. They did so because they believed it was the right thing to do, because they understood that life was about more than just survival, more than just individual gain. It was about connection, about love, about caring for others, even those who were strangers. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology, their wealth, or their military might. It was their ability to see beyond themselves, to recognize the suffering of others and act to alleviate it. It was their willingness to risk everything for a stranger, to offer their lives without hesitation, and to find meaning in the act of selfless sacrifice. And it was this, more than anything, that left an indelible mark on the galaxy and ensured that Earth and its people would be remembered not just as explorers or conquerors, but as the species that taught the universe the true meaning of compassion.